the Great Zimbabwe civilization stands as a testament to the ingenuity and grandeur of Africa's medieval past. Its intricate stone structures and vast trade networks reveal a complex society that defied the conventional boundaries of ancient cultures. In the southeastern region of Africa, where the rugged terrain of the Matobo Hills meets the fertile valleys of the Limpopo River, a complex societal transformation was unfolding around the 10th century. The Bantu-speaking peoples, who had migrated to this region from Central Africa centuries earlier, were establishing themselves as skilled farmers, herders, and traders. Their settlements, often consisting of circular huts with thatched roofs, were scattered throughout the landscape, surrounded by fields of sorghum, millet, and cowpeas. As the population grew, so did the need for more complex social structures and specialized labor. The emergence of a wealthy elite who controlled access to valuable resources such as gold, ivory, and salt marked the beginning of a new era in Southern African history. These early leaders, likely descended from esteemed lineage, began to consolidate power and establish trade networks that would eventually stretch across the Indian Ocean. One of the earliest recorded settlements in this region was the area now known as the Masvingo province, where archaeological evidence suggests a human presence dating back to the 5th century. The fertile soil, abundant wildlife, and access to nearby water sources made it an attractive location for early farmers and herders. As the population expanded, so did the settlement, with new villages emerging along the banks of the Save River and its tributaries. The introduction of ironworking technology, which arrived in southern Africa around the 2nd century BCE, revolutionized agriculture and warfare, allowing for more efficient farming practices and the creation of more effective tools and weapons. The use of iron also facilitated the construction of more substantial dwellings, such as the stone-walled houses, that would become a hallmark of the Great Zimbabwe civilization. As trade networks expanded, goods such as glass beads, ceramics, and textiles began to flow into the region from distant lands, including the Middle East, India, and China. The presence of these exotic items not only reflects the growing wealth and influence of the local elite, but also testifies to the emergence of a complex interconnected world economy. The earliest written records of this region come from Arabic traders and travelers who marveled at the rich natural resources and sophisticated societies they encountered. Ibn Battuta, a 14th-century Moroccan explorer, wrote of the land of gold in southern Africa, where he witnessed prosperous towns and bustling markets. Although his accounts are often shrouded in myth and exaggeration, they provide valuable insights into the perceptions of outsiders regarding the region's wealth and cultural achievements. The landscape itself, with its rolling hills, granite outcrops, and vast expanses of savanna, played a crucial role in shaping the destiny of this civilization, as the people who lived here learned to harness the natural resources and adapt to the challenges of their environment. As the landscape itself played a crucial role in shaping the destiny of the Great Zimbabwe civilization, the people who lived here learned to harness the natural resources and adapt to the challenges of their environment. The region's unique geology, with its granite outcrops and dolerite dikes, provided an abundance of stone for construction, which would later become a hallmark of the civilization's architectural style. The nearby rivers, such as the Save and the Runde, offered a reliable source of water, facilitating irrigation and supporting a diverse range of crops. The introduction of new crops, such as maize and beans, from Central America via trade networks with the Indian Ocean, further diversified the agricultural base of the region. This, in turn, allowed for population growth and increased social complexity. As specialized labor and trade networks became more sophisticated, the emergence of a wealthy elite who controlled access to valuable resources such as gold, ivory, and salt continued to consolidate power and establish trade relationships with neighboring regions. One of the key factors that contributed to the growth and prosperity of the Great Zimbabwe civilization was its strategic location at the crossroads of several major trade routes. The city's proximity to the Indian Ocean, via the coastal ports of Mozambique and Kilwa, facilitated trade with merchants from Arabia, Persia, and China. Goods such as glass beads, ceramics, and textiles flowed into the region, while gold, ivory, and other precious commodities were exported to distant markets. The archaeological record suggests that the city of Great Zimbabwe itself began to take shape around the 11th century with the construction of the first stone walls and buildings. The earliest structures, such as the hill complex and the valley complex, were likely built using local granite and dolerite stones, which were quarried from nearby sites. The use of stone in construction marked a significant departure from earlier building traditions, which had relied on wood and thatch. As the city grew, so did its architectural sophistication with the development of intricate stone carvings, ornate decorations, and complex drainage systems. The famous soapstone birds, which adorn the walls of the hill complex, are a testament to the advanced artistic and technical skills of the Great Zimbabwe civilization's craftsmen. These birds, with their intricate details and stylized forms, have become an iconic symbol of the civilization, reflecting its unique cultural identity and aesthetic sensibilities. The construction of the Great Zimbabwe city was likely a gradual process spanning several centuries, with different phases of building and renovation. The city's layout, with its carefully planned drainage systems, terracing, and stone walls, reflects a deep understanding of the local environment and a sophisticated approach to urban planning. The people who built and inhabited the city of Great Zimbabwe were likely organized into a complex social hierarchy, with different classes and castes playing distinct roles in the society. The ruling elite, who controlled access to valuable resources and trade networks, likely resided in the hill complex, which offered a commanding view of the surrounding landscape. The valley complex, on the other hand, may have been inhabited by artisans, craftsmen, and traders who played a vital role in the city's economic and cultural life. As the social hierarchy of the Great Zimbabwe civilization became more complex, the city's artisans and craftsmen continued to develop their skills, producing intricate stone carvings, pottery, and textiles that reflected the society's unique cultural identity. The soapstone birds, which adorned the walls of the hill complex, were just one example of the advanced artistic achievements of the Great Zimbabwe civilization's craftsmen. These birds, with their stylized forms and intricate details, were likely created using a combination of stone carving and polishing techniques, which had been developed over centuries. The production of these soapstone birds was likely a specialized craft, with skilled artisans passing down their knowledge and techniques from generation to generation. The use of soapstone, a soft and easily carved rock, allowed the craftsmen to create intricate details and textures that would have been difficult to achieve with harder stones like granite or dolerite. The birds themselves were often depicted in stylized poses, with outstretched wings and intricate feather patterns, which may have held symbolic or spiritual significance for the people of Great Zimbabwe. One of the most significant archaeological discoveries at Great Zimbabwe is the presence of numerous stone ruins, including the hill complex, the valley complex, and the outer city. These ruins provide a unique glimpse into the daily lives of the people who lived in Great Zimbabwe, with evidence of complex drainage systems, terracing, and stone walls that reflect a deep understanding of the local environment. The hill complex, with its commanding view of the surrounding landscape, was likely the residence of the ruling elite, while the valley complex may have been inhabited by artisans, craftsmen, and traders. The outer city, which lies beyond the main stone walls of Great Zimbabwe, is home to numerous smaller ruins, including the remains of houses, granaries, and other domestic structures. These ruins provide valuable insights into the daily lives of ordinary people in Great Zimbabwe, with evidence of cooking hearths, storage pits, and other domestic features that reflect the society's social and economic organization. The presence of numerous granaries, for example, suggests that the people of Great Zimbabwe were skilled agriculturalists, able to produce surplus crops that could be stored for later use. The agricultural systems of Great Zimbabwe were likely based on a combination of cropping and livestock production, with crops like maize, beans, and sorghum being grown in the surrounding valleys and hills. The use of irrigation systems, which were fed by nearby rivers and streams, allowed the people of Great Zimbabwe to cultivate crops in areas that would have been otherwise unsuitable for agriculture. This, in turn, supported a large and diverse population, with estimates suggesting that the city may have had as many as 20,000 inhabitants at its peak. As the city of Great Zimbabwe continued to grow and prosper, its trade networks expanded, with merchants and traders coming from all over Africa and beyond to exchange goods and ideas. The city's strategic location at the crossroads of several major trade routes made it an important hub for the exchange of goods like gold, ivory, and textiles. The presence of numerous foreign artifacts, including Chinese ceramics and Arabian glassware, testifies to the extent of Great Zimbabwe's trade networks, which stretched from the Indian Ocean to the Mediterranean. The growth of Great Zimbabwe's trade networks was likely facilitated by the city's rulers, who controlled access to valuable resources like gold and ivory. These rulers, who were likely members of a powerful aristocracy, played a crucial role in shaping the society's social and economic organization, with their control over trade and commerce allowing them to accumulate wealth and power. The presence of numerous stone ruins, including the hill complex and the valley complex, reflects the complexity and sophistication of Great Zimbabwe's social hierarchy, with different classes and castes playing distinct roles in the society. One of the most significant archaeological discoveries at Great Zimbabwe is the presence of numerous gold workings, which reflect the city's importance as a center for gold production. The use of sophisticated mining techniques, including shaft mining and quartz crushing, allowed the people of Great Zimbabwe to extract gold from the surrounding hills and valleys. This gold was then traded with merchants and traders from all over Africa and beyond, supporting the growth of Great Zimbabwe's economy and cementing its position as a major center for trade and commerce. As the gold workings at Great Zimbabwe continued to thrive, the city's rulers began to expand their trade networks even further, establishing connections with merchants and traders from the Swahili coast of East Africa. The Swahili city-states, such as Kilwa and Mombasa, were major centers for the trade of goods like ivory, textiles, and spices, and the rulers of Great Zimbabwe saw an opportunity to tap into this lucrative market. Archaeological evidence suggests that Great Zimbabwe's traders were able to exchange gold, copper, and other minerals for goods like Chinese porcelain, Arabian glassware, and Indian textiles. One of the most significant trade routes established by Great Zimbabwe was with the city-state of Kilwa, which was located on an island off the coast of present-day Tanzania. Kilwa was a major center for the trade of ivory, and the rulers of Great Zimbabwe were able to establish a monopoly on the supply of ivory to the Swahili coast. This allowed them to accumulate vast wealth and power, which they used to build elaborate stone structures like the hill complex and the valley complex. The trade with Kilwa also introduced new cultural influences to Great Zimbabwe, including Islamic and Arabic traditions that would later become an integral part of the city's identity. The expansion of Great Zimbabwe's trade networks also led to an increase in the city's population, as people from all over Africa and beyond came to take advantage of the city's economic opportunities. The city's rulers responded to this growth by establishing a complex system of governance, which included a powerful aristocracy and a network of administrators who oversaw the collection of taxes, the maintenance of public works, and the administration of justice. This system allowed Great Zimbabwe to maintain its position as a major center for trade and commerce, even as the city's population continued to grow and become more diverse. As the city's economy continued to thrive, the rulers of Great Zimbabwe also invested in the development of its infrastructure, including the construction of elaborate stone walls, public buildings, and irrigation systems. The city's famous stone walls, which were built using a combination of granite and dolerite, were designed to protect the city from external threats and to symbolize the power and prestige of its rulers. The walls also helped to define the city's boundaries and to separate its different neighborhoods and districts, each of which had its own unique character and function. The construction of Great Zimbabwe's stone walls also reflects the city's complex social hierarchy, with different classes and castes playing distinct roles in the society. The rulers and aristocracy lived in elaborate stone structures like the hill complex, while the common people lived in smaller, more humble dwellings made of wood and thatch. The city's artisans and craftsmen, including metalworkers, potters, and weavers, lived and worked in specialized neighborhoods where they produced goods for both local consumption and export. This social hierarchy was reflected in the city's architecture, with different types of buildings and structures being used to reinforce the power and status of its rulers. The growth and development of Great Zimbabwe also had a significant impact on the surrounding region, as the city's trade networks and cultural influences spread to other parts of Africa. The city's rulers established relationships with neighboring kingdoms and chiefdoms, including the Kingdom of Mapungubwe, which was located in present-day South Africa. These relationships were often complex and multifaceted, involving both cooperation and conflict, as the different kingdoms and chiefdoms competed for power and resources. However, they also helped to spread Great Zimbabwe's cultural influences, including its language, religion, and artistic traditions, to other parts of Africa. One of the most significant cultural influences to spread from Great Zimbabwe was its architectural style, which featured elaborate stone structures with intricate carvings and ornate decorations. This style, which is known as Zimbabwean or Great Zimbabwean, can be seen in many other parts of Africa, including present-day Zambia, Malawi, and Mozambique. The style reflects the city's unique cultural identity, which was shaped by its history, geography, and social hierarchy. It also reflects the city's status as a major center for trade and commerce, as well as its connections to other parts of Africa and beyond. As Great Zimbabwe continued to thrive, its rulers also invested in the development of its agricultural systems, including the construction of elaborate irrigation systems and the introduction of new crops like maize and sorghum. These investments helped to increase the city's food production, which supported its growing population and allowed it to maintain its position as a major center for trade and commerce. The city's agricultural systems also reflected its complex social hierarchy, with different classes and castes playing distinct roles in the production and distribution of food. The rulers and aristocracy controlled access to the best land and resources, while the common people worked smaller plots of land and relied on their own labor to produce food for their families. The development of Great Zimbabwe's agricultural systems also had a significant impact on the surrounding environment. As the city's population grew and its economy expanded, the city's rulers cleared large areas of land for agriculture, which led to deforestation and soil erosion in some areas. However, they also developed sophisticated irrigation systems, which helped to conserve water and reduce the risk of drought. These systems, which were built using a combination of stone and earth, allowed the city's farmers to cultivate crops like maize and sorghum, even during times of drought or famine. As Great Zimbabwe continued to thrive, its rulers also invested in the development of its spiritual and cultural practices, including the construction of elaborate temples and shrines. The city's spiritual leaders, who were known as spirit mediums, played a significant role in the city's governance and decision-making processes, as they were believed to have the power to communicate with the spirits of the ancestors. The spirit mediums also helped to maintain the city's cultural traditions, including its music, dance, and art, which were an integral part of its identity and heritage. The spiritual practices of Great Zimbabwe also reflected the city's complex social hierarchy, with different classes and castes having distinct roles and responsibilities in the city's spiritual life. The rulers and aristocracy controlled access to the most important temples and shrines, while the common people worshipped at smaller, more humble structures. However, all members of the city's society were expected to participate in its spiritual practices, including its rituals and ceremonies, which helped to maintain social cohesion and reinforce the power of its rulers. As Great Zimbabwe continued to thrive, its rulers also faced challenges and threats from both within and outside the city. The city was vulnerable to external attacks, particularly from neighboring kingdoms and chiefdoms that were jealous of its wealth and power. The city's rulers responded to these threats by building elaborate stone walls and fortifications, as well as by maintaining a powerful army that was equipped with advanced weapons like bows and arrows. As the 15th century progressed, Great Zimbabwe's power and influence began to wane, largely due to a combination of internal strife, environmental degradation, and external pressures. The city's rulers faced increasing challenges in maintaining control over their vast territories, as regional leaders and neighboring kingdoms began to assert their independence. One notable example is the rise of the Kingdom of Kami, which emerged as a major power in the region and eventually became a rival to Great Zimbabwe. The decline of Great Zimbabwe was also hastened by environmental factors, including soil erosion, deforestation, and drought. The city's agricultural systems, which had been so carefully developed over the centuries, began to fail, leading to food shortages and famine. The rulers responded by implementing new irrigation systems and introducing new crops, but these efforts were ultimately unsuccessful in reversing the decline. In the early 16th century, Great Zimbabwe was dealt a devastating blow by the arrival of the Portuguese, who had established trade routes along the East African coast. The Portuguese sought to exploit the region's rich gold deposits, which had long been a source of wealth for Great Zimbabwe. However, their presence also brought new diseases such as smallpox and influenza, which decimated the local population. As the Portuguese expanded their influence in the region, Great Zimbabwe's rulers found themselves increasingly isolated and vulnerable. In 1513, the city was abandoned by its inhabitants, who fled to the nearby town of Kami. The once great city was left to decay, its buildings crumbling into ruin as the jungle reclaimed the site. The legacy of Great Zimbabwe lived on, however, in the many smaller kingdoms and chiefdoms that emerged in the region. These states continued to thrive, often adopting the cultural and architectural traditions of their predecessor. One notable example is the Kingdom of Mutapa, which rose to prominence in the 16th century and became a major power in the region. The site of Great Zimbabwe itself remained abandoned for centuries, a testament to the transience of human civilization. However, in the late 19th century, European explorers and archaeologists began to take an interest in the site, recognizing its historical significance and cultural importance. In 1902, the British government declared Great Zimbabwe a protected monument, and excavations began in earnest. The findings included elaborate stone structures, intricate carvings, and a wide range of ceramics and other artifacts. Today, the site of Great Zimbabwe is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracting visitors from around the world who come to marvel at the ruins of this ancient city. The site is also an important cultural and historical resource for the people of Zimbabwe, who take great pride in their heritage and the achievements of their ancestors. Yet, the legacy of this ancient city endures, a powerful reminder of the ingenuity, creativity, and perseverance of our ancestors. Thank you for joining me throughout this historical journey. That's all for today's History with Herodotus. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, remember that, to understand the present, we must first understand the past.